Hello.
Welcome to the Betrayed Michael channel. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming. These are the stories people live but never talk about, until now. We hope you're ready. Let's begin. I stood in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed, watching my wife pack like she was preparing for a cross-continental expedition. Megan was crouched over her suitcase, tucking every blouse, shoe, and toiletry into place with the kind of precision that made me smile. She always packed like she was moving in, and this trip was no different. At 35, Megan still had that spark that made people turn their heads. Her auburn hair caught the morning light just right, and those green eyes of hers always looked like they were holding a secret, something playful, something dangerous, something I could never quite read. After 10 years together, the woman could still knock the wind out of me with a single glance. "Got everything you need for the conference?" I asked casually, leaning against the doorframe. She looked up at me with a soft smile. "I think so. 5 days in Chicago, gotta be ready for anything." I nodded, but my eyes drifted towards something she was gently folding into her suitcase, something lacy and familiar. It was the lingerie set I'd bought her just last month for our anniversary. Delicate ivory lace, with those little embroidered details she said made her feel elegant, not trashy. The kind of thing she only wore on special occasions. "Huh," I said with a raised brow, a half-smile tugging at my mouth. "Bringing out the anniversary gear, huh?" A faint pink bloomed on her cheeks. "Well, you never know. Could be a fancy dinner or something." Something. The word hung there for a second too long. She went back to packing, fussing with the way her dress shoes were arranged. I noticed she'd gone heavier on her makeup than usual that morning. The kind of eyeshadow and mascara she usually saved for our date nights, not work functions. And her hair? Not in the usual rushed ponytail. It fell in soft waves around her shoulders, done with care. Done with purpose. "You're really going all out for this conference," I said, trying to sound more amused than concerned. "Must be a pretty important crowd." She shrugged without looking at me. "Just want to make a good impression. That's all." I watched as she gave herself one last spray of that perfume I'd included with the lingerie, jasmine and vanilla. The scent was familiar, comforting even. It reminded me of the night I gave her that gift: candles, wine, music. A night we actually felt connected. But this time, something felt different. Like a draft you can't see, but you know is there. Megan zipped up her suitcase and pulled the handle upright, ready to roll. "All set," she said, smiling a little too brightly. "You'll call me every night, right?" I asked, trying to keep things light. "Of course," she said, stepping close and pressing her lips to mine. The kiss was soft but long enough to leave me a little dizzy. As she pulled away, her fingers traced my jaw, something she used to do all the time when we were younger. "I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too," I replied, forcing a smile. "Have a great time. And hey, don't forget to bring me back something weird from the gift shop." She laughed, that melodic laugh I always loved. "Of course. I love you," I added as she headed for the stairs. "Love you too," she called back. I stood at the window, watching her hoist the suitcase into the back of her car. She didn't struggle with it. Megan was always tougher than she looked. A quick wave through the windshield, and then she was gone, turning the corner and disappearing from view. And just like that, the house felt wrong. Quiet, but not peaceful. Hollow. I shook the feeling off and headed into the kitchen. Coffee first, then grading. That was the plan. I had a stack of physics exams waiting on the table, and they weren't going to grade themselves. But just as I sat down, red pen in hand, my phone buzzed. One new message. I figured it was Megan letting me know she'd made it to the airport, or maybe she forgot her charger again. But the number wasn't saved in my contacts. Just some random sequence of digits. I opened it anyway. "Your wife isn't who you think she is. Check the guest list for the Palmer Hotel." I stared at the screen, waiting for it to make sense. Waiting for it to be a prank, or a wrong number. But deep down, something in me shifted. A crack. A whisper of something I'd been trying not to hear. And just like that, the day turned cold. It was one of those warm spring days where everything felt right, birds chirping outside, soft sunlight pouring through the windows. But as I sat there staring at that screen, a cold shiver ran right down my spine. I rubbed the back of my neck, trying to shake it off. What kind of person sends something like that? And why? My first instinct, honest to God, was to delete it. Just toss it in the digital trash and never think about it again. Probably spam. Maybe a wrong number or some cruel prank. But then that little voice, the one that sneaks in when you least want it to, started whispering. What if it's not a prank? What if there's something to it? I set the phone down, tried to focus on grading, telling myself I was being ridiculous. Megan and I had been together 10 years. We were solid. I trusted her. Hell, she was my best friend. Still, the words from that message echoed in the back of my mind like a bad song stuck on repeat. I stared at the same physics question 3 times and still couldn't tell you what it said. With a frustrated sigh, I shoved the exams aside and muttered to no one, "This is insane. I trust Megan completely." But even as I said it, my hand was already reaching for my laptop. Just to check. That's all. Nothing crazy. Just, look, verify, get some peace of mind, and move on. I pulled up the website for the Palmer Hotel in downtown Chicago. Classy place. Megan had mentioned it a few times when she talked about the teaching conference. Something about keynote speakers and breakout sessions on interdisciplinary learning. I found the part of the site that let you search conference registrations. I typed in the event, Chicago Educators Summit. Then I entered her name, Megan Wilson. Click. And waited. Felt like that damn page took a lifetime to load. No attendees found matching your search. I blinked. That couldn't be right. Maybe I spelled something wrong. I typed it in again, slower this time, double-checking every letter. Hit submit. Same result. Nothing. That pressure in my chest started to build, slow but steady. Like when a storm rolls in and the air gets too still. I picked up my phone and opened our shared calendar, hoping to find something to set my mind at ease. The conference was right there, blocked off for 5 full days. But just below it, barely noticeable unless you were really looking, was another entry. One I didn't recognize. A&M Special Project. The title was vague, tucked underneath the conference block like it was trying to hide. But those initials, A&M, sparked something. I knew them. I'd heard them before. Then it hit me. Alex Grant. The new PE teacher at Megan's school. They'd been working on some fitness and art integration program together. Seemed innocent enough at first. She talked about it a lot, said it was good for student engagement. I leaned back in my chair, heart starting to hammer. My brain kicked into overdrive, replaying the last few months. The late nights at school, grading. The new clothes she bought, tighter, more showy than she normally wore. I complimented her. Said she looked great. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. And her phone. She'd gotten a lot more private with it lately. Tilting it away from me. Laughing quietly at texts she wouldn't explain. No, I said out loud, shaking my head like that could knock the doubt loose. I'm being paranoid. Still, I found myself heading down the hallway to her home office. Told myself I was just looking for the conference info. Nothing more. There'd be an itinerary somewhere, maybe in a folder on her desk. I searched through piles of lesson plans, kids' drawings, sticky notes about meetings and grading. No itinerary. I was about to give up when I noticed a big, hardback art textbook on the shelf. It looked out of place, not one she usually used. Something white peeked out from between the pages. A sliver of paper. I pulled the book down, heart thudding, and as I opened it, a folded note fluttered to the floor. I bent down, picked it up with hands that were suddenly cold. It was his handwriting. I recognized it instantly, sloppy, uneven print. Can't wait for our special getaway. You're my muse, my passion. I stood there staring at those words, and the truth slammed into me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was something real. Something that cracked the foundation of everything I believed about my marriage. And suddenly, I knew. Megan wasn't just going to a conference. She was going to him. The words on that crumpled note blurred as my eyes filled with tears. I couldn't even read them anymore, but they were seared into my brain anyway. You're my muse, my passion. I dropped to the floor, the paper still clenched in my fist, and just sat there on the carpet like a man who'd been gut-punched by someone he never saw coming. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. I couldn't believe it. 10 years. 10 years of building a life together, loving her, trusting her, and she threw it all away for what? Some fling with a shiny new PE teacher? I don't know how long I stayed there. Minutes, maybe more. The kind of pain I felt didn't track time. Eventually, the initial wave of grief passed, and I could think clearly enough to do something besides fall apart. I needed answers, real ones, before I confronted Megan. I had to be sure. I had to know. Wiping my face with the back of my hand, I sat back down at the dining room table and opened my laptop again. This time, I searched for Alex Grant. The guy Megan had been collaborating with lately, school projects, she said. Team efforts. His social media wasn't private. That already told me more than I wanted to know. The guy posted like he thought the world needed to know every detail of his life. And there it was, his latest status. Posted just yesterday. Heading out for a rejuvenating beach retreat. Time to recharge and find new inspiration. #Oceana Resort. I froze. The Oceana was a high-end resort, oceanfront, spa packages, champagne on arrival kind of place. I'd dreamed of taking Megan there for years, saving a little here and there, but somehow it was always just out of reach on our salaries. But apparently, he made it work. Maybe they split the cost. Maybe it didn't matter. Either way, he took my wife somewhere I'd only ever promised her. A knot tightened in my stomach. I dug deeper. A quick check showed Alex's wife, Emily, had just posted too, something about being out of state, visiting her sick mother. Everything was lining up. And all of it made me sick. I picked up my phone, hands trembling. I couldn't face this alone. I needed someone outside of this chaos, someone who actually cared about me. Without really thinking, I found myself dialing Sarah Chin. She answered on the second ring. Hey, Jack. What's going on? Her voice was like a lifeline. Warm, concerned, the kind of voice that makes you feel a little less crazy. I need your help, I said, and my voice cracked right down the middle. Can you come over? She didn't ask for details. I'll be there in 10. And she was. Sarah had been a student of mine once, years back, smart as hell, way too mature for her age. After graduation, we kept in touch. She became a private investigator and somehow, over time, a close friend. Trusted. Honest. The kind of person who saw through lies like glass. She let herself in using the old spare key I'd given her for emergencies. She found me exactly where I'd been when I hung up, slumped at the dining room table, surrounded by half-graded papers and a lifetime cracking apart at the edges. She didn't ask questions right away. She sat across from me, reached across the table, and gently took my hand. Jack, she said, soft as a whisper. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the text. The fake conference. The search. The note in the book. I said it all out loud, hearing how crazy it sounded, how real it felt. She didn't interrupt once. But I saw it in her face, that look of recognition. That little crease in her brow that said she knew something I didn't. When I finally stopped, she sat there for a moment, silent. Then she took a deep breath and said something I wasn't prepared for. Jack. I have to tell you something. I've suspected this for a few weeks now. I looked up fast, the shock hitting me harder than I expected. What? I didn't want to believe it, she said quickly, holding her hands up. A few weeks back, I saw Megan and Alex together at a local cafe. It didn't look like a work meeting. But I told myself I was imagining things. I didn't want to start something based on a gut feeling. I nodded slowly, the sting in my chest easing just a bit. I knew Sarah, she wouldn't keep something like that from me without a damn good reason. So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What do I do? Her eyes sharpened, something cold and calculating flickering behind them, the same look I'd seen when she used to chase leads in her early cases. "Now," she said, "we find proof. Beyond any doubt." She pulled a tablet from her bag and tapped the screen a few times. "I've got access to some tracking software. We'll see exactly where Megan's phone is right now." I hesitated. It felt wrong. Like crossing a line. But then I thought about the note. The fake calendar entry. The perfume she wore when she left. I nodded. "Do it." It took less than 5 minutes. And then there it was, a blinking dot on the map. Megan's phone. Right at the Oceana Resort. Jack Wilson, betrayed husband, high school teacher, now a man standing at the edge of something he never thought he'd face. "What now?" I asked. The words felt hollow. Sarah looked at me with a steady gaze. "Now we go. We confront them." "But Jack, you're not going alone." "I'm coming with you." I opened my mouth to argue, but she cut me off. "You're in no shape to drive, and this is too big for you to carry solo. We'll check in under my name. They won't see you coming. And then you decide how this ends." As she made the call to book a room, something strange happened. A calm settled over me. Cold. Focused. The pain was still there, don't get me wrong, it always would be. But now it sat beneath something stronger. A drive. They thought I'd never find out. They thought I'd sit at home, clueless. I clenched my jaw. I know exactly how I want to handle this. Sarah looked up from the phone, one brow raised. "Yeah. My way," I said. And for the first time in hours, my voice didn't shake. She nodded, a grin playing at the corners of her mouth. "Whatever you need, Jack. Let's make them regret ever thinking you were a fool." We gathered what we needed and headed out to Sarah's car. I tried to keep it together, but inside, it felt like a war was breaking out in my chest. Rage and heartbreak, swirling in a storm I couldn't calm. But underneath it all, buried somewhere deep, there was something else too. A bitter kind of satisfaction. The plan was in motion. The truth was seconds from exploding out into the open. And by the time this whole thing played out, Megan and Alex, they were going to wish they'd never even looked at each other, let alone snuck off to a damn resort together. Before we left, I did something I'm not exactly proud of, but I don't regret it either. I opened the school's shared media account on my phone and linked it to a private live stream. I wasn't sure if I'd use it yet. But I wanted the option. I wanted the truth out there, even if I was the only one who ever saw it. As Sarah drove, the landscape blurred past the window, but I barely noticed. I was too deep in my head, running every possible outcome on a loop. What would Megan say when she saw me? Would she lie? Apologize? Cry? And what would I say back? How do you even speak when everything you built is lying in pieces at your feet? One thing was for sure, they weren't walking away from this untouched. When we pulled into the Oceana Resort, the sun was already beginning to dip toward the ocean, that golden hour where everything looks soft and perfect. It would have been beautiful, if I wasn't walking straight into hell. The place was immaculate. Tall white columns, blooming flowers everywhere, a driveway that looked like something out of a movie. But instead of feeling impressed, I just felt sick. This was where they came to pretend they were something special. Like their betrayal deserved a view. Sarah reached across the console and gave my arm a gentle squeeze. "Just follow my lead," she whispered. "We're just a couple on a weekend getaway. Nothing to see here." I nodded. Forced a smile. I'd been faking smiles all day, what was one more? Inside, Sarah flipped a switch I didn't even know she had. She laughed, flirted, chatted up the concierge like they were old friends. Said it was a last-minute escape from the chaos of city life. I played along, slipping my arm around her waist and gritting through the lie of it all. The man behind the counter smiled and handed over 2 keycards. "Mr. and Mrs. Chin, you'll be in room 712. Enjoy your stay." "Oh, I'm sure we will," Sarah said, still wearing that effortless grin. As we rode the elevator up, I could feel my pulse in my ears. My legs felt heavy. My hands were clammy. I was seconds from seeing her. Them. "You've got this," Sarah whispered beside me. "I've got your back." The doors opened with a soft ding. The hallway was quiet, carpet thick under our feet. I counted the doors out loud in my head. 712, our room. 714. Theirs. We didn't even make it inside our room. I stopped, dead in my tracks, heart slamming into my ribs. From behind the door of 714 came her voice. "Oh, Alex." Her laugh, breathy, high, familiar, cut through me like glass. "Tonight's going to be our most passionate yet," she giggled. "I can't wait to see what you brought," he said, his voice smug. "Is it that little red number? The one that drives you wild?" "You know it, baby," she purred. "I only bring it out for you." And then, the final blow. "Poor Jack has no idea what he's missing," she whispered. I froze. My fists clenched so tight I thought my knuckles might split open. White-hot fury surged through me like lightning. How dare she say that? How dare they sit there in their little fantasy world, mocking me like I was some clueless joke? I was seconds from kicking down that door when Sarah stepped in, putting a firm hand on my shoulder. "Stick to the plan," she said, calm but serious. "You've got them right where you want them." I nodded, barely. We slipped into our room, and Sarah went to work fast. She set up a small recording device facing the hallway and the door to 714. Then she pulled out her phone. "How do you want to do this?" she asked, checking the camera angle. I took a breath. It tasted like copper. I knock. When Megan opens the door, you start recording, on your phone, so it's subtle. Sarah nodded. "Done. You ready?" "As I'll ever be." We stepped back into the hall. She angled herself slightly behind me, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. I raised my hand and knocked. A moment of shuffling inside. Then footsteps. Then the door opened. There she stood, Megan, in a silk robe, her hair tousled, cheeks flushed. Her eyes locked with mine, and for a second, time stopped. "Jack," she gasped. What are you doing here?" I smiled. "Calm. Cold. Surprised, darling?" I asked. "Thought I'd surprise you at this teacher conference." Color drained from her face. Behind her, Alex Grant stepped into view. Shirtless. Barefoot. "Jack." "I can explain," she started, already panicking. I raised a hand. "Oh, I bet you can. I'd love to hear how this little beachside fantasy fits into the Chicago Educators Summit." They looked at each other, scrambling for words. Their whole web of lies unraveling in real time. "It's not what it looks like," Alex mumbled. I chuckled, low and humorless. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like my wife is screwing a coworker at a resort we could never afford together. So please, enlighten me." Megan's eyes welled with tears. "Jack, please, can we talk privately?" My tone didn't change. "Why? You didn't seem too concerned about privacy when you were calling him baby and laughing about how oblivious I am." Megan went pale. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Alex stepped forward like he thought standing in a pair of boxer shorts made him some kind of authority. "Look, Jack, this is a private." "No," I cut him off, my voice rising as I pointed a finger right at his chest. "You don't get to play that card. You lost the right to privacy the second you decided to sleep with my wife." Doors were creaking open now. Curious neighbors, faces half hidden behind chains and doorframes. Of course they were watching. The perfect beach getaway, turned circus. Sarah placed a hand on my arm, steady and calm. "Maybe we take this inside," she said quietly. I nodded, jaw tight, and pushed past Megan and Alex into the room. It was nicer than I expected, plush bed, balcony view, soft lighting. All wasted on the two of them. "Who the hell is she?" Megan snapped, her shock turning to fury. "This is Sarah," I said, calm again. "A friend. A witness." "A what?" Alex scoffed. "Are you seriously recording? Watching? Gathering proof?" I looked at him flatly. "Yes. I am. You'd be amazed what you can uncover when people think you're just some clueless husband." He looked ready to pop off, but I ignored him and unzipped my suitcase, laying out clothes one by one on the bed. Megan blinked. What are you doing? Unpacking, I said, casually. I've booked the adjoining room for the week. Hope that's not an issue. Alex stepped forward. You can't do that. This is our. I turned slowly, letting every ounce of rage simmer in my stare. Actually, I can. This suite's under my name. Paid with my credit card. So if either of you is uncomfortable, feel free to leave. They exchanged panicked looks. The walls were closing in. Jack, please, Megan said, reaching for me. Let's talk about this. We can fix this. Oh, we'll talk, I said, voice cold. We've got all week to talk. About betrayal. About what it means to throw away 10 years of marriage like it was nothing. Then I walked calmly into the next room, closed the connecting door behind me, and left them standing there with their shame. Morning came bright and too cheerful. The sun poured into the room like the world didn't care that my life had split in two. I hadn't slept. My mind was a wreck of strategy and sorrow. But Sarah and I? We had a plan. At exactly 9 a.m., I knocked on the adjoining door. No answer. I didn't wait. I used my keycard and stepped into their room like I owned it. Because I did. They were both on the bed, looking like they'd been run over by guilt and hadn't gotten back up. Morning, I said brightly. Hope you two slept better than I did. We've got a big day. Alex sat up, rubbing his face. What the hell are you talking about? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. We're having a conversation. With Emily. His color drained instantly. You can't. I can, I said, tapping Sarah's laptop. And I will. I already set it up. She'll be calling in about, I checked my watch, 5 minutes. Megan let out a choked sob. Jack, please. Don't do this. We can work it out. You involved Emily, I snapped. You don't get to pick and choose who gets hurt now. She deserves to know. The next 5 minutes passed in silence. Tense. Tight. They whispered, plotted, scrambled like rats in a sinking ship. I ignored them and set the laptop on the desk. At 9:05, it chimed. I answered. Emily's face appeared on the screen, tired, confused. Jack? What's going on? Hi Emily, I said gently. I'm sorry to reach out this way, but there's something you need to see. I turned the screen toward the bed. There they were. Megan and Alex. Cornered. Emily's face changed slowly, confusion, then realization, then heartbreak. Adam, she whispered. What are you doing there? I thought you were at a training seminar. Alex opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Megan couldn't even raise her eyes. I told her everything. With as much care as I could, I walked her through the lies, the fake conference, the affair. She said nothing, just sat there, tears sliding down her cheeks. When I finished, she looked at Alex. How could you, she asked, voice breaking. After everything we've been through? I trusted you. He tried to speak, muttered some weak apologies. She cut him off. I can't do this. Don't come home, she said, her voice like glass. Your stuff will be at your brother's. She ended the call. The silence after that felt heavier than anything I'd ever carried. I closed the laptop. Looked at the two of them. I hope you're proud, I said. You didn't just destroy 2 marriages. You hurt good people. Megan finally looked up. Her eyes were bloodshot. Jack, don't tell the school. Please. We'll lose everything. Alex nodded, his fake confidence long gone. We'll do anything, man. Just please, don't ruin our lives. I studied them. I let the silence stretch. Finally, I spoke. Fine, I said. I won't say a word to the school. Their shoulders slumped with relief. I sat across from them at the restaurant table like it was any other vacation dinner, but I was sitting with 2 people who had tried to build a future on the ashes of my life. Earlier that day, after Megan and Alex signed their written confessions, statements Sarah had drafted and printed back at the room, I gave them a reprieve. I made it look like I was going to let it go quietly. They both signed without a second thought, like kids being let off with a warning. Megan even thanked me. Said we could work through this. I didn't say a word. Just took the signed papers, nodded, and walked out. That was all I needed, their signatures. Their surrender. But tonight was for the truth. The restaurant at the resort was packed. Families. Honeymooners. People laughing over wine and pasta. Our table was dead center, right in the middle of it all. Perfect. I waited until the waiter left to take our drink orders, then casually pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, face up. You don't mind if I check my messages, do you? I asked, sounding casual, even bored. Megan shook her head, smiling faintly, clearly thinking I was finally cooling off. Alex just grunted. But what they didn't know, what they didn't see, was that with 2 quick taps, I'd launched a live stream on the school's social media account. Hundreds of students, parents, and faculty were now watching. The phone's camera caught them perfectly. So, I said, my voice nice and loud, let's talk about this affair of yours. How long has it been going on? Megan choked on her water, coughing hard. Jack, she hissed under her breath. Not here. Why not? I asked, still calm. We've hidden enough, don't you think? Time to get everything out in the open. Alex leaned forward, jaw tight. Wilson, I'm warning you. Warning me? I interrupted. That's rich. You're the one who's been screwing my wife. Tell me, Alex, how's it feel to betray your own wife and your colleague at the same time? People were turning to look now. Heads were craning. Conversations around us were quieting like someone had turned the volume down on the entire room. Megan buried her face in her hands. Alex turned crimson, his hands balled into fists under the table. Please, Jack, Megan begged, her voice cracking. We already said we're sorry. We promised it was over. What more do you want? I leaned back, letting the moment breathe, letting the silence stretch. I want the truth, Megan, I said, voice steady. I want you to look me in the eyes, right here, right now, and admit what you did. She stared at me for a long moment, and then, like something broke inside her, she snapped. Fine, she shouted. Yes. We had an affair. We lied. We made up the conference so we could come here. Are you happy now? I smiled, cool and satisfied. Ecstatic. I turned to Alex. What about you? Anything to add? He looked like he was ready to throw a chair. This is blackmail. No, I said, tapping my finger once on the table. This is consequences. You two made your choices. Now the rest of the world gets to see what those choices look like in the light. At that exact moment, Megan's phone started going off, buzzing again and again. She looked at it, and her face drained of color. Notifications. Comments. Missed calls. Oh my God, she whispered. Jack, what have you done? I picked up my phone and ended the stream with one tap. I didn't tell anyone, I said simply. I let you do it yourselves. And judging by the number of messages you're both getting right now, I think the school's seen enough. They both froze. Their faces said it all. You promised. Alex shouted, eyes wide. You said you wouldn't say anything. And I didn't, I replied, standing up slowly. But you were the ones who confessed. Publicly. Loudly. I just gave you a microphone. Megan frantically pulled out her phone, calling someone. Alex followed, typing furiously. Trying to put out fires. But it was too late. The video was spreading like wildfire. Parents, students, colleagues, everyone was watching. Sarah, sitting beside me, placed a hand gently on my forearm. A silent reminder, I wasn't alone in this anymore. I think I've lost my appetite, I said, standing. Enjoy your meal. Oh, and don't worry about the bill, it's on me. Call it my gift to the couple of the hour. We left them there, exposed, humiliated, surrounded by strangers who suddenly knew. The next morning, the air in the resort felt different. Thick. Tense. You could feel the judgment rolling through the halls. Word had traveled fast. It always does when it's this dirty. Sarah and I had breakfast on the balcony. I actually enjoyed it. Quiet. Peaceful. For the first time since the nightmare started, I felt like me again. That peace didn't last long. Megan came to the room. No knocking. Just walked out onto the balcony like she still had the right. Her eyes were puffy and bloodshot. Her voice was hoarse. "How could you do this to me?" she asked. "You've ruined everything." I looked up slowly, set down my coffee, and met her gaze. "No, Megan. You ruined everything. When you betrayed our marriage. When you decided to lie to me, humiliate me, and crawl into bed with another man." Her face twisted with something between rage and desperation. "You don't understand. I was unhappy, Jack. You were always so busy, your work, your students, your projects. Alex made me feel alive again. Don't you dare try to make this my fault," I said, my voice like ice. "If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have worked on it. Instead, you cheated. You chose this." Sarah stood quietly and touched my arm. "I'll give you a minute," she said, slipping back into the suite. Megan's eyes followed her. "Is that why you did this? You're sleeping with her, aren't you?" I laughed, but it wasn't funny. "God, you still don't get it. Sarah's my friend. She's been here for me. Something you used to be, before you decided loyalty didn't matter." Megan looked like she was deflating. Her fight was gone. "What happens now?" she asked, barely audible. "What do we do?" "There's no we," I said, shaking my head. "You made your choice. You wanted him. Now you've got him." Right on cue, Alex stepped out behind her. Pale. Tired. Shaking. "We need to talk," he said. "The school board's called an emergency meeting. They want all of us there to explain what happened." Megan turned to me, begging again with her eyes. "Jack, please. Help us. If we lose our jobs. You think I owe you anything?" I said, standing now, voice cold and flat. "You think I'm going to help you lie your way out of this too?" I stepped past them, headed back inside. "You made your bed," I said without looking back. "Lie in it." Then I added, just loud enough for them to hear. "Not that you're strangers to that." "I know everyone here," I said, my voice low but firm. "So yes, Alex, I do think I'm better than you." He flinched. Something in my tone made him hesitate. The puffed-up confidence he used to throw around like armor suddenly looked flimsy. The physical presence, the smug arrogance, none of it landed anymore. It just bounced off me. "I'd back off if I were you." For the first time, he did. Not because I threatened him. But because I didn't have to. "This isn't over," he muttered, turning toward the hallway. "Oh, I think it is," I called after him. His shoulders stiffened as I added, "By the way, I already spoke to my lawyer. You'll both be hearing from him. Divorce paperwork's being drafted." Megan gasped. "Divorce? Jack, no. We can work this out. Please, just give me another chance." I turned to her slowly. Her face was wet with tears. She looked nothing like the woman who had kissed me goodbye with a suitcase full of lingerie. She looked small. Desperate. "There are no more chances, Megan," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it. "You had 10 years. 10 good years. And you tossed it all aside for what? A thrill? A lie? I deserve better than this. I deserve someone I can trust." She cried harder now, really sobbing. "But what about our friends? Our coworkers? They'll take sides, it's going to be so messy." "I'm not worried," I said quietly. "I've been honest. I've done nothing wrong. And you'd be surprised how far honesty goes in a world that's starving for it." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and couldn't help the smile that tugged at my lips. "That was Karen," I said. "From the PTA. She's organizing a support rally. Seems some of the parents respect how I've handled all this. They're calling me a role model for integrity." Megan's face crumpled. This wasn't how she pictured any of this going. She probably thought she'd get away with it. That she'd end things quietly with Alex when it got too complicated, and I'd never be the wiser. Maybe she even thought I'd forgive her if I ever found out. Instead, her whole world was on fire. And she lit the match. "I think you should go," I said softly. "Sarah and I have plans. And I'm sure you and Alex have a lot to talk about." She stood there for a second, shoulders trembling. Then she turned toward the door. But before she left, she paused and looked back at me one last time. "I do love you," she said, her voice broken. "I never meant to hurt you." I met her eyes. There was no more rage. No more chaos. Just truth. "If you loved me, Megan," I said, "you wouldn't have done this. Love isn't just some feeling. It's a choice. You choose your partner, day after day. Through the boring stuff. The hard days. All of it. You chose Alex. And now, you get to live with that choice." She left then. Sobbing quietly. The door clicked shut. Sarah came out a moment later. Her expression was soft, but I could see the concern in her eyes. "You okay?" she asked gently. I let out a long breath and looked out over the ocean. The water was still. Too peaceful for how I felt inside. "No," I said honestly. "But I will be." She stepped closer, squeezed my hand. "You handled that better than most people ever could. I'm proud of you, Jack." I gave her a tired smile. "Couldn't have done it without you." We stood there in silence, the sea stretching endlessly before us. There was still pain, deep, aching pain, but there was something else now, too. A strange lightness. For the first time in days, I let myself think about after. What came next? It wouldn't be easy. There'd be a school board meeting. The divorce hearings. Rumors. Gossip. But I would face all of it with the same honesty and strength I'd shown here. They made their choices. Now it was time to make mine. A week passed. To the people in Millbrook, it felt like a lifetime. 15,000 people suddenly had front row seats to the biggest scandal the town had ever seen. The conversations were everywhere, quiet whispers in the aisles of the grocery store, not so quiet debates over coffee at the diner. And in the center of it all, was me. Jack Wilson. The man who exposed his wife's affair live on the school's social feed. The guy who took a betrayal and made it a masterclass in consequences. As I pulled into the parking lot of the Millbrook School District office, I took a deep breath. Cars lined every space. Even overflow was full. The entire town had shown up. Not for spectacle, for resolution. I spotted Megan's car across the lot. A dull throb pulsed in my chest. Not anger, not really. Not even grief. Just residue. What was left of something that used to mean everything. Inside, the boardroom was full. Overflow chairs lined the walls. Teachers. Parents. Journalists. Students. Everyone wanted a seat at the table today. I walked in with my head high, nodded at familiar faces. I noticed Megan and Alex on the other side of the room, seated apart. As far apart as the lies between them now. They looked like shadows of who they were. Eleanor Simmons, the board president, a woman who could cut glass with her stare, called the meeting to order. "We're here today," she said, her voice slicing through the murmurs, "to address the recent incident involving 3 members of our educational staff." She paused. "We will hear from each of the involved parties. Then a decision will be made." I was called up first. I stood, heart pounding but voice steady. This wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. This was about truth. "Every day," I said, hands braced on the sides of the podium, "I walk into my classroom trying to do more than teach equations. I try to show my students what it means to be curious, to be decent. To be honest." My voice was steady. Strong. But I could feel the weight of 100 eyes on me, students, parents, teachers, press, the board. Everyone. "They're watching us," I continued. "Not just for the lesson plan or the lab demo. They're watching how we handle ourselves when things fall apart. How we show up when it hurts. I looked up and caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. A few of my former students, some in college now, others with kids of their own, were sitting near the back, nodding. One of them, a quiet girl I'd once helped through a rough home situation, wiped her eyes. "I won't pretend this last week hasn't wrecked me," I said. "But I've always taught my students that character isn't shown when things are easy. It's revealed when everything's broken, and you keep standing anyway." I paused. Let the silence settle. I chose to face this situation with truth and dignity. Not just for my own sake, but for theirs. I motioned toward the students. Because they need to see what it looks like to stand tall in the middle of a storm. When I stepped down, the room didn't explode in applause, not at first. Just a low ripple of clapping. But it grew. Spreading. Until Eleanor Simmons had to raise her hand for silence. Next up, was Megan. She walked up to the microphone like a different woman than the one I'd married. Gone was her usual poise. Her shoulders were hunched. Her chin trembling. "I know what I did was wrong," she began. Her voice was almost a whisper. "I made a terrible mistake." The mic let out a high-pitched squeal and she flinched, pulling back. "I'm an excellent teacher," she said, finding a little more volume. "My students love me. My art program has brought this school national attention. I know I made a personal mistake, but that shouldn't cost me everything." Silence. No one clapped. No nods. Just polite, frozen faces. And then came Alex. He strutted to the mic like he was auditioning for a motivational speaker gig. "Look," he said, leaning forward like we were all in on something. "Yeah, what happened between Megan and me was a mistake. But it was consensual. No laws broken here." He grinned. "No one else did. I've built up the best PE program this school's ever had. Ask anyone. We've got record enrollment, statewide recognition, and new grants coming in. So yeah, I screwed up. But who hasn't?" While he talked, I glanced at Megan. She was glaring at him, like she finally realized this wasn't the ride-or-die partner she thought she'd found. Alex was out for himself. Always had been. After they both finished, Eleanor called for a recess so the board could deliberate. The room buzzed with tension. No one was talking loudly. But you could feel it, a pressure, like waiting for a verdict in a trial. When the board returned, their expressions said it all before a word was spoken. Eleanor cleared her throat. "We've reached a decision," she said, voice calm and clipped. "Mr. Wilson, in light of your record and the integrity you've shown throughout this matter, we find no cause for disciplinary action. You will remain on staff at Millbrook High." A few parents clapped. Then a few students. Someone even cheered, quickly silenced by a sharp look from a board member. Eleanor turned her gaze to Megan and Alex. Her tone went colder. "As for Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Reeves, your actions have damaged the reputation of this institution and violated the ethical standards we hold our educators to. Effective immediately, you are both placed on administrative leave pending further review. Transfer to other districts will be considered after resolution." The room erupted. Voices. Gasps. Megan's sobs. Alex's fist slamming down on the table. Me? I sat quietly. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I just breathed. As the meeting ended, people started to gather around me. Parents I barely knew shook my hand. Colleagues patted my back. Students, some I hadn't seen in years, hugged me, told me I was the reason they stayed in school, the reason they believed they could be something. And then a soft voice behind me. "Mr. Wilson?" I turned. It was Emily Chong. A senior this year. Smart. Quiet. Used to doubt herself in every science lab. Tears welled in her eyes. I wanted to say thank you," she whispered. "You're the reason I want to be a scientist. You made me believe I could do it." My throat tightened. This. Right here. This was why I got out of bed in the morning. Not the paycheck. Not the diploma count. Not even the school board vindication. This. That same afternoon, as I pulled into the school lot, I saw something I never expected, a crowd. Parents. Students. Alumni. Signs everywhere. We stand with Mr. Wilson. Integrity matters. Thank you, Jack. Karen Thompson, head of the PDA, stepped forward, her eyes bright. We just wanted to show our support, she said. You reminded us what character looks like. I couldn't speak. Not right away. All I could do was nod, and breathe. Because for the first time in weeks, I felt something real again. Hope. Karen's voice was warm and sure as she stepped forward, gesturing to the crowd behind her. We just wanted to show you how much we appreciate you, Jack, she said. You've taught our kids more than just physics. You've shown them what real character looks like. I wasn't prepared for it. The posters. The chanting. The way students and parents clapped like I just won a championship instead of surviving a betrayal. It caught me off guard, that much kindness, after so much pain. As I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands, nodding thanks, I felt something shift. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming something. My name. My future. Then I saw her. Across the street. Megan. Sitting in her car, half-shielded by the dashboard. Our eyes met, just for a second. She looked like a ghost of herself, drawn, pale, watching from the sidelines as I was surrounded by the very community she'd been pushed out of. She hit the gas and drove off without a wave. The contrast was impossible to ignore. While I was being embraced, celebrated even, Megan and Alex had become pariahs. Whispered about. Avoided. I'd heard Megan tried volunteering at the local art center, hoping to earn some goodwill back. They politely turned her away. I also heard she cried in her car afterward. Alex wasn't doing much better. Rumors swirled about a shouting match at the cafe, and I overheard some students talking about how short-tempered he'd become before the school finally put him on leave. Whatever pride he had left seemed to be unraveling fast. As for me, I threw myself into my work. I took over the science team, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Turns out, when you stop spending your energy trying to hold together a life someone else is breaking, you have a lot left over to give to the right things. Late nights in the lab with the kids became my favorite part of the week. Their curiosity, their passion, it reminded me why I became a teacher in the first place. Then, one night, everything changed. Mr. Wilson. Zoe, one of my brightest students, burst into the room with wide eyes and a massive grin. We did it. We qualified. We're going to the national championship. The room erupted. Cheers, hugs, a few high fives. I stood there in the middle of it, surrounded by joy, and for once, it wasn't bittersweet. It was just, good. Later, after everyone left, I sat alone at my desk, watching the leftover energy still buzzing around the room. That's when I knew. It was time to move on. The offer had come a few weeks earlier, a position at a top-tier magnet school for science and technology in another state. At first, I didn't even consider it. This town was home. But as the weeks passed, the idea stopped sounding like escape and started sounding like freedom. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with Principal Rogers. We'll be sorry to lose you, he said, leaning back in his chair. But I get it. Sometimes the best way forward is a fresh start. You've done great things here, Jack. No doubt you'll keep doing them wherever you go. Everything moved fast after that. In between coaching the science team and preparing for nationals, I packed my life into boxes and signed the paperwork that would close this chapter once and for all. 3 months after the day everything fell apart at that beachside resort, I found myself in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce documents. It was quiet. Megan hadn't put up a fight. No drawn-out arguments. No last-minute pleas. Just her signature, delivered through her own lawyer, along with a quiet agreement to all terms. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe she just wanted it over. Either way, I walked out of that office with the papers in my hand and a strange kind of stillness in my chest. It was really over. That night, as I packed the last of my boxes, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Megan. She looked small. Not just in stature, in presence. Her shoulders sagged. Her hair was tied back hastily. Her voice was quiet. "Can I come in?" she asked. "I need to get the last of my things." I stepped aside without a word. We moved around the place like strangers sharing a memory. That awkward dance of two people who used to know every inch of each other's lives, now walking on eggshells. She kept glancing at me. Like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. And just when I thought she was going to leave without speaking, she turned back toward me, tears already gathering. "Jack," her voice trembled. "I know I have no right to ask this, but, is there any chance? Any at all? I've changed. I swear. I still love you." For the first time in months, I really looked at her. I saw the woman I married, but also the woman who mocked me behind my back, who lied to my face, who chose someone else without a second thought. I saw the whole picture. And I realized. I was done painting her into my life. "Megan," I said gently, "I'm sorry. But no. Trust, once broken, it can't be glued back together. Not for me. Not after this." Tears spilled from her eyes, and for a second, I thought she might collapse right there. But she didn't. She nodded, biting her lip, and whispered, "I understand." She left with a single bag over her shoulder. Didn't look back. And I didn't ask her to. Megan's eyes were rimmed with red as she stood in the doorway, holding the last of her things. She gave me a final glance, one of those looks where you can feel everything she wanted to say but didn't have the right to anymore. She nodded slowly. A small, broken acceptance. But as she turned to go, I stopped her. "Wait," I said, reaching for an envelope I'd left on the entry table. "I wrote this for you. I don't know if it changes anything, but maybe it'll help bring some closure." She hesitated for a moment, then took the letter with trembling hands. "Thank you, Jack," she whispered. "For everything. I'm so sorry for what I did to you." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Some things don't need a response. She walked away. And this time, it felt final. A chapter closed, not slammed shut, but sealed with the weight of everything that had happened. I turned back to my boxes, quietly finishing the task I had once dreaded. Now, it felt like something sacred. My life was packed, piece by piece. Ready to be moved. Ready to begin again. The next morning, the sky was impossibly clear. I stood on my front porch, the same one I'd stood on for years, coffee in hand, watching the town wake up. I looked down the street at the houses I used to wave to, the neighbors I knew by name, the sidewalks that carried my entire life. My car was packed. The tank was full. The GPS set. But before I could take that first step toward a new life, I heard something, voices. Footsteps. A growing crowd. And then I saw them. My science team. Students. Colleagues. Parents. They were walking up the street toward my house, holding hand-painted signs and carrying a worn scrapbook tied with ribbon. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We'll miss you, Jack. Integrity always wins." The science team stepped forward and handed me the scrapbook. Inside were photos, notes, and drawings, years of memories. Lab photos. Class trips. Scribbled thank you messages in teenage handwriting. Teacher after teacher stepped up and shared what I had meant to them, how I'd encouraged them, stood up for them, helped them believe they mattered. Parents clapped. Students hugged me. It was overwhelming. I looked out at their faces, people I had poured myself into. Not just taught, but lived with. Grown with. Fought for. And from the corner of my eye, I saw her. Megan. Standing across the street again. Alone. Watching. Just like before. For a few seconds, our eyes met. No anger. No fire. Just a heavy silence, full of all the things that could never be said now. Then she turned and walked away. And I turned back to the people who had shown up for me, really shown up. After the last hug, the last handshake, the final wave, I climbed into the driver's seat. I took one last look at Millbrook in the rearview mirror. And then I pulled away. Miles down the highway, the scenery changed. The sun crept higher in the sky. For the first time in months, I let myself lean into the quiet. No tension. No waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just me, and the road. I thought about what had happened. The betrayal. The pain. The humiliation. But also, the clarity. I wasn't leaving defeated. I was leaving whole. I'd found my voice again. My purpose. And I was heading somewhere new, somewhere I could build without the weight of broken promises. Whatever the next town held, I was ready. Back in Millbrook, in a small apartment filled with unopened boxes, Megan sat alone. She held my letter in her lap, the one I'd handed her that night. She'd read it 100 times. Probably more. It was simple. Kind. But firm. I had wished her well. Told her I hoped she found peace. But also told her, with no bitterness, that I could never take her back. Trust, I wrote, isn't just a word. It's a promise. And when it's broken, it doesn't glue back together, it shatters. She placed the letter gently in the drawer next to a photo of us from years ago, before the cracks began to show. And for the first time, I think she understood. She hadn't just lost me. She had lost everything. Her home. Her job. Her community. And most of all, her sense of self. But as the sun set over Millbrook, long shadows stretched across the pavement and rooftops, not just closing a chapter, but casting light on what came next. In one car, a man drove toward new beginnings. In one apartment, a woman sat in the stillness of regret, beginning the slow, uphill road toward redemption. And in between them, a town carried on, forever changed by a truth that had cut deep, and healed even deeper. Thank you for sticking with me through this story. If you found meaning in Jack's journey, like, comment, and subscribe to the Betrayed Michael channel. Because sometimes the worst betrayal becomes the start of something greater. And we'll be here, to tell those stories. Click on the next video you see on the screen, and I'll see you there.
Bye bye.